Hello and welcome back once again to Organic Cardboard. My name is Owen Kneep, and today I am very excited to add some extra buzz around the game Honey Buzz. Honey Buzz is a game that was created by Jason Kingsley and has some very cute artwork done by a woman named Anne Heidsieck, if I'm pronouncing her last name properly. It's produced by Elf Creek Games. It's for 1 to 4 players. It's got a suggested playtime of 45 to 90 minutes, and it is suggested for ages 10 and up. I would say that it's probably more of a 14 and up game. The strategy in this game is maybe a little difficult for a 10-year-old to do well at. It's not to say that they couldn't play it though, so take that for what it's worth. So in Honey Buzz, what the theme of the game is that you are a bee colony that has decided that they are going to get into economics, and not only are they creating honey for themselves, now they're actually producing honey to sell, and they're going to sell it to all the little woodland critters that are putting in orders, and you're trying to complete those orders, as well as you can also just sell your honey outside of the orders too, just individually. So Honey Buzz is essentially a worker bee placement game. So you're going to be placing your little bees on these 6 areas of the board. Each one of those areas is going to allow you to create an extra tile section of your honey, your hive or whatever. It's kind of like a honeycomb setup that you're creating. So that's going to be consisted of these little 2-section hexagonal tiles, and they're going to link up in a way that is going to allow you to create these holes, so these little cells that you're going to be able to fill with nectar. You've got a foraging bee that is sitting out ready to be activated any time, and there's like a little meadow that the bee can kind of move around, and depending on where he lands at, he can pick up certain kinds of nectar. There's 4 different kinds of honey as well as pollen, so those are all of the resources that you're selling. Now, one of the odd things about this game is that even though it's essentially worker placement, it's also kind of a engine-esque or action linking kind of mechanic that's going on, because what you're doing is you're taking these different hexagonal pairs, you're placing them together, and eventually you're creating a hole. And that hole, again, is the cell, and that cell, as soon as it is created on your little player area, you are going, well, also you're going to be able to place nectar into that hole, but the immediate effect is that every icon that is encircling that space is going to activate. So whenever you're taking turns, you are really only getting to take actions once one of these cells is being completed. So you may be able to do that regularly, or you may have to kind of plan your moves ahead, but ideally you're going to want to set yourself up in a way that you are getting to take actions as often and as efficiently as possible. And one of the things that makes that a little difficult is that there are both these kind of orange-red borders on these hexagonal tiles, as well as these little white borders as well. And each one of the nectar types has a certain arrangement that it requires. Now, wildflower can be just the easiest one to get to, where it just takes 3 tiles placed down and it has an orange border around the whole thing. But some of the other ones require a specific arrangement of those white and orange borders. And so there's a really fun puzzle that comes out as you're piecing together that hive or whatever that you're creating, this honeycomb structure. So as you're playing the game, you are starting out with just one little bee to begin with, and so you have to take these new bee actions in order to produce additional bees for you to be able to take actions both more regularly, as well as being able to place your bees in a section where there are already bees. Because if somebody has already placed a worker into one of those spaces, then the next person that wants to take that same action, if there's a bee already there, they have to place one more than the previous bee that was just placed there. So you are having to decide on your turn, are you going to place a bee, or are you going to return bees back from the fields or the hive, or I guess it's the hive sections, to be able to make them ready for work again. So when you're creating these new bees, they go into kind of a nursery, and they're not ready for you to actually take back until you take your turn by returning those bees back. And then you get a little bit of movement with your foraging bee, but otherwise you're not getting to actually forage or do any real actions as far as that's concerned. So the 6 actions is you're getting to create new bees. You can do a foraging space. You've got the ability to just create like 5 coins. And I should go ahead and say too that the point of this game is to have the most money at the end. That is your points. But you've got to spend money to make honey, so you can sell honey to make money in this game. So one of the spaces again you could take is just to give you 5 coins when it activates. You've got another one that's going to produce, so it's going to actually produce honey. It's got a cute little fan because it's kind of simulating the bees fanning off the nectar to create the honey. And then you've got a sell action. So you've got to be able to activate any of those actions to be able to do basically anything on the game. The strategy of this game can really be situational. So you're really having to play off of what everybody else is doing. In a 2-player game, it's not quite as difficult because you're not getting in each other's way nearly so much. In a 4-player game, you really have to modify what you're doing though as you go. So when you take a production action, what's going to happen is any nectar that you've collected from foraging is going to have the chance to be able to be produced. But whenever you produce the honey, you can't stack it, so it stays in your hive in that nectar space. And it's only until you sell that honey that you can then produce it once more. Your little fan, you have a little token for the fan whenever you're doing the production, and it can produce up to 3 honeys at a time if you place it in a space that happens to have 3 cells encircling it. So one of the things that you're dealing with too is whether you are going to go through this strategy of really going hard for the orders, and that is the most obvious thing to try to do. You've got these goals that are being set up that are different for every game. You shuffle some cards and pick out some new goals that you're going for, and some of those goals are going to have things like the first person to produce or to fill 3 orders gets 20 coins, which is quite a big chunk for this game. I found that at the end of the game, it's going to end somewhere usually around 80 to 100 points for the winner. So 20 coins is huge. So if you have that showing up, you've got a first place, a second place, and a third place on this race that's happening that you're trying to go towards. And so first person gets 20, second, third, and goes on down the line. It's 20, 10, and 5. So it's really important for that first one, but maybe if you're playing a 4-player game and everybody's already going for all the orders and your honey isn't coming out the way that you want it to, maybe what you'd want to do is instead just try to produce a bunch of the same honey in a cluster near itself, because if you're doing that, you can sell all that honey all at once. Whenever you're doing a sell action, you're either filling an order, and that'll give you points at the end of the game. It's kind of like you're getting paid for it, but you don't get usable money that you can use throughout the game. Money is going to be used to do things like when you take a foraging action, it allows you to move further. You get one space for free whenever you take a foraging action, and then you are going to be able to move additional spaces if you spend a couple more coins for each space. It's one thing you can do. One of the other 6 spaces that you get is a decree, which the decree action is a wild action. You can do any of the other 5 types with that action, but it costs 5 coins. So there's going to be situations where you're wanting to get those a lot, but you don't want to have to give up your points, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're paying for anything. You're giving up the points that you're ultimately wanting to win the game with. When you sell honey, though, just by itself without selling it as an order filling action, you can select any one type of honey and you can sell as much of it as you have in your hive. It's hard to get more than 2 or 3 of the same types of honey to produce all at once in the game. Not only to just be able to pick up enough nectar to do that, but in order to have them in a cluster where it's efficient, to be able to just produce them and sell them and produce them and sell them from that same little area. And this makes more sense when you see the board laid out, because again, it's a hexagonal structure, and the way this lines up is you're going to have 6 hexes around one cell space that these nectars get filled into. So at the very most, whenever you complete a cell, you're going to be able to take 6 actions at a time. But usually it's going to be 3, maybe 4, just depends how your hive's gotten set up. But it's a really, really fun puzzle. Now, the components for the game, I think, are just excellent for the type of game that this is. You've got some decently thick cardboard. It's not that crazy, super fat cardboard that's unnecessarily thick, but it's not flimsy at all. You got nice tiles. The honey that you use is probably the coolest of the components that you'll see, because they come in these kind of jelly-like little honey droplets. It's almost like if you were dripping honey onto the board and they just made a little plop, and they're gonna be colored in the color of the types of honey. So you've got wildflower, rosemary, acacia, and one other, cherry blossom, I think was the other one. And then you also got pollen, and I think the pollen's well done. It's like these little stones that are colored, like if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever purchased pollen before to eat. It's actually, I think it's really good. It's supposed to be really healthy for you. But they have these nice different colored little pieces for the pollen. So it has a nice feel to it. It feels like you're picking up little chunks of pollen as you're going out foraging. Whenever you take a forage action, you can do that optionally, as take pollen instead of taking nectar, whether you just don't want the nectar or you can't fit it into your space whenever you're taking that forage action. So what I found with the game too is that you are having to plan ahead a lot, and then you're going to take little bursts of actions all at once. So that's where I think that difficulty in the younger crowd to play this game is going to come in, because if you're playing with adults that are planning their moves ahead, several ahead, which is going to happen at least 2 or 3 turns ahead, it could get a little difficult for your younger kids playing it. But I really like that puzzle, though. Again, I can't go over it enough. It's super satisfying to go through, and it's a lot of fun just seeing people get in each other's way. You'll find that what I've found is that you almost have to, at least in the very beginning, you have to kind of focus on making those new bees. But eventually, all those bee tiles that you spent your workers on to get so that you could get new bees are going to be obsolete, because the most bees that you're ever going to have is 10. So at some point you got to switch it over and just not worry about it so much. But if you leave it alone in the beginning, what's going to happen is other people are going to place their bees in those sections, and you're going to have 2 or 3 bees that you're dealing with, and they can't go anywhere hardly that somebody else has already been at without you just having to waste your next turn and recall your bees back. But the having those goals that you have to go after, the what they call the Queen's Contest cards. They're either going to be races that you're going towards or end game conditions. Like one of the end game conditions is to have the most empty cells on your hive. So it's fun to see how everybody's having to modify what they want to do with what they need to do, and that's highly satisfying to try to maneuver around the track too that keeps up with the money for all of your different types of honey is interesting, because every time you make a cell of a honey type, it's going to go down in value. One, it does have a minimal amount that's abysmal once it gets down to the bottom. But in the beginning, if you went through that strategy again of just making honey and forgetting all the orders, and really set up an engine, so to speak, it's kind of, there is a sort of an engine-y kind of component to the way that these actions are reacting to the way that your board is constructed. Then I could see you getting some really high points, because some of these honeys start at like 7 coins, some are like 8 coins. Now whenever you sell the honey, you are getting again to sell all of the same type, so at the most you're probably only going to have 3 at a time that you're selling. But if you could regularly sell 3, you'd sell it for 8. The next time you sold those 3, there'd be 7 apiece. So the 8's going to be 24, and then you get 21. And you can see how that would stack up until that honey gets down in value in the market, because it's so saturated with that type. So really enjoyed it. The orders are one of the things that come out in the game that can really cause some RNG kind of things to happen, because there is certainly some luck that's involved with the types of orders that show up. You're going to have one order that's available for everybody to see at the beginning, and then you're going to have these larger orders that come out that are worth more points as the game goes. I think you start with a couple, 2 or 3 small orders, and then another 2 large orders underneath of it. And I found that playing the 4-player game too, you're watching those orders, and you've got a certain set of honey that is available for you to produce, but you'll find that it's like you can't complete those orders, or you just certainly can't get them in time for the other people to beat you to it. And so you're really having to modify at that point, and usually you're going to end up just selling your honey outright and trying to go that route. So I don't know what the best strategy is with it. I think it would be fun to try to redo it in a way where I was only going after honey and trying to leave the orders alone as much as possible. But those orders really stack up and give you a lot of points, especially if you have an end game goal that's like the most, whoever has the most orders gets 20 coins. Then the orders themselves are worth money. They're not worth as much as just selling the honey if you're selling big chunks of the honey at a time, but it's kind of hard to do that too. So it's really entertaining. So all in all, I really love this game. I give it an 8.5 out of 10, and as an 8.5, that means that I'm gonna actively try to get people to play this game. I'm gonna want to pull it out pretty regularly. It's not like the only game that I'm gonna play, but I'm really gonna look forward to the next time I get a chance to pull out Honey Buzz. I think the insert was really well done for a retail version of a game. Now, it's not the best insert. I'm sure you could get a better aftermarket one, but the insert that it comes with here has sections for all of the tiles to go in. You've got starting tiles for each of the different colors of the 4 different players that are going to be playing, can be a different color, and holds those separately for you. All of these tiles are going to sit in stacks that are the same type, so you can just order them whenever you put them back up into the box, and they stay put pretty well. And then you've just got kind of piles for the main things that you're going to need to get for the money, the honey, the bees, the little individual player tiles, pollen. And the cards, they got enough room for the cards to sit in sleeved. And then you've got the little sections for all the foraging spots, all the nectar tiles. The money's kind of cute too, because you've got little 5 coin acorns, and then you've got leaves that are worth 1 coin, and then you've got some other bigger leaf that's worth 10 coins, and the bear paw prints are the big 20 coin ones. So it's cute the way that they did it. I think the pastel colors of the bees are pretty as well. So again, components I think are excellent. This insert now, if you flip this on its side, this stuff will kind of get jumbled around. It'll still stay put fairly well. The cards will stay in place. The hexagonal spots will stay in place, but some of the other components will get kind of jumbled around. Now, if I would have saved my insert pieces, maybe I could have stuffed those down in the bottom and raised the lid and raised it up closer to the lid. I just didn't want to carry the extra weight of that old cardboard and whatever, maybe at some point I'll put something in there, but it's fine. And again, I appreciate that there is at least a little bit of effort done on the insert. Most of the time you get games and it's just like, it feels like it wouldn't take that much effort to design, because they're already designing some kind of an insert, but it's usually so thoughtlessly done. It's basically like they're saying, hey, we don't want to spend any extra money to make an insert because either we don't want to do it or we just don't want to pass that cost on to you. But this one's nice, sturdy, thick plastic, thick in comparison to most inserts. So again, really love the components of it. But again, Honey Buzz, 8.5 out of 10. Love it. I think anybody that likes worker placement games, that likes puzzles, and likes to be able to chain these actions together and have these blowout moves that happen that can completely change the whole landscape of what everybody else is having to do on your turn, I think you're going to love this game. So keep an eye out for Honey Buzz. I had a hard time finding it. I actually got this off of Facebook, I believe, but I think it retails for a decent price. I'm sure they're going to get it in those stocks if they haven't already by now. But if you see Honey Buzz for sale, grab it. I think you're really going to like it. But anyways, I thank you guys so much for stopping by. If you enjoy this kind of content, always a couple of those free clicks on the screen there really help out channels like mine. But at any length, I'm just so happy that you guys stopped by today, and I hope you all are having a great time playing your games. And until next time, enjoy your games. I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.